You got the raise. You remember the moment. The number on the offer letter was bigger than anything you had seen with your name on it, and you thought, finally some breathing room. Finally, I can stop worrying. But 3 months later, you check your account, and nothing has changed. The same stress, the same month-to-month feeling, just with better coffee, a later model car, and a closet of things you barely look at. This looks like bad budgeting, but it is actually something more subtle. It is your brain trying to solve an old problem with a new tool that does not work anymore. And the question you are probably afraid to ask is this: if more money does not fix it, what will? Let me say this gently. If you have ever earned more and somehow felt poorer, you are not bad with money. You are not undisciplined. You are not broken. You are experiencing one of the most invisible and universal financial behaviors there is. It has a name in finance books: lifestyle inflation. But that phrase sounds like a moral failure. It is not. It is a psychological survival mechanism. Your brain is not trying to bankrupt you. It is trying to protect you from deprivation, from shame, from the feeling of being left behind. And it is doing exactly what it evolved to do. The problem is that what kept you safe at $30,000 a year works against you at $80,000. And that is not your fault. That is just how the mind builds walls. Here's where this behavior shows up first. You've had a long week. You're exhausted. You could cook. You could pack lunch. But the voice in your head says you deserve a break. You worked hard. You order delivery. You buy the pre-cut vegetables. You take the toll road to save 15 minutes. Individually, these are nothing. $5 here, $10 there. But they are not really about the money. They're about mental energy. When you were earning less, you had the bandwidth to comparison shop, to cook from scratch, to drive the long way. Every dollar mattered, so you paid attention. Now your brain senses that you have more, and it reallocates your attention away from saving and towards surviving the day. Convenience is not laziness. Convenience is your brain conserving energy because it thinks the emergency is over. But the emergency is not over. It just looks different. Think about your weekly subscriptions. Streaming services you don't watch, a gym membership you use twice a month, a meal kit that piles up in the fridge. You set these up when you felt optimistic, when you believed the raise would change everything. Now they just drain quietly. And you don't cancel them because canceling feels like admitting defeat, like saying you can't afford something you technically can. That's loss aversion disguised as loyalty. Your brain would rather lose $15 a month automatically than feel the small sting of clicking unsubscribe, because that click forces you to acknowledge that your income did not solve the problem, and that acknowledgement hurts more than the $15. The real trap is not the spending itself, it's the invisibility. When you bought your first car for $3,000, you remembered every penny. When you upgrade to a $30,000 car with a monthly payment, you stop noticing. The payment becomes background noise, the same way your rent became background noise, the same way your student loan payments became background noise. Your brain habituates to recurring expenses. It stops seeing them as choices and starts seeing them as facts of life, like gravity, like weather. But here's the part most people miss. The middle class does not stay broke because they buy luxury handbags or sports cars. They stay broke because they turn small, reasonable upgrades into permanent overhead. A slightly nicer apartment, a slightly newer phone every 2 years, a slightly more expensive grocery store. Each upgrade feels justified. Each one is small, but together they form a ceiling that your income can never break through, because every time you earn more, you raise the ceiling. And this is where money becomes emotional. You're not just spending money, you're spending the feeling of scarcity. You're trying to buy relief from years of worrying. That dinner out is not just dinner, it's a middle finger to the version of you who counted coins for bus fare. That vacation is not just a vacation, it's proof that you made it. The brain does something unexpected here. It confuses comfort with safety. It tells you that if you can afford the premium version, you are secure. But security does not come from what you buy. It comes from what you don't have to spend. And your brain can't feel that. It can only feel the immediate reward of soft sheets, loft lattes, and no lines at checkout. So it keeps chasing comfort,
unaware that comfort is the thing eroding your buffer. Your relationship with money changes completely when you stop seeing convenience as a treat and start seeing it as a leak. But here's the identity shift most people never talk about. When you were younger, or when you had less, frugality felt like survival. It wasn't a value, it was a necessity. The moment necessity lifted, you let go. You told yourself you earned the right to stop pinching pennies. And that's true, you did earn it. But what you didn't realize is that frugality was never just about the money. It was about awareness. And awareness is what keeps you safe. Not deprivation, not guilt, just knowing where the money goes. The same habit of checking prices, waiting for sales, cooking at home, those behaviors feel different at 40 than they did at 20. At 20, they felt like shame. At 40, they can feel like choice. The behavior itself is neutral. What changes is why you do it. This behavior reduces stress in the short term. That's why it's so sticky. Every time you buy convenience, you get a small hit of relief. You avoid the discomfort of planning, of waiting, of doing it yourself. That relief is real, and your brain learns to crave it. The spending becomes an emotional regulation tool, a buffer against exhaustion, a shield against the feeling of never having enough time. You're not buying products, you're buying the illusion of a simpler life. And that illusion works, until you look at your savings, until you realize you have nothing left for the real emergencies, until the car breaks down and the credit card is already full. Then the illusion shatters, and you are left with shame. But the shame is misplaced. The problem was never your willpower. The problem was that you asked your spending to do something it can't do. You asked it to make you feel safe, and no amount of takeout or upgraded anything can give you that. If you have read this far and you recognize yourself, here's what I want you to hear. You are not a failure. You are not secretly lazy or undisciplined. You are human. You are exhausted, and you have been trying to soothe that exhaustion with the only tool that offered immediate relief. That makes sense. That is not broken. That is just what brains do when they're tired and told they deserve a break. The fact that you are even thinking about this means you are already more aware than most. Not because you will stop spending, not because you will become a monk of frugality, but because awareness changes the relationship, and that relationship is the only thing that ever needed to shift. Not your budget, not your income, just your understanding of why you reach for convenience when you're tired. That understanding is not a solution. It's something better. It's permission to stop judging yourself for being human, and that permission might just save you more money than any budget ever could.